The VAV, shaped like a vertical line, represents a man standing. It also represents the idea of connection on every level, because a vertical line spiritually is connecting heaven and earth. Much like the ladder in Jacob's dream, it was entrenched in the earth, but its head reached to heaven. We're taught that the first time that a letter or a word or a name appears in the Torah, it's the central headquarters, as it were, for the context and the meaning of this word or letter. The first time that the letter VAV appears is in the very first verse of the Torah. In the beginning, God created heaven and earth. And the VAV is heaven and earth. So this tells us the role of the VAV, from the practical to the mystical, is connecting everything in the universe. We see further that in the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, which we've mentioned before, in the beginning, there are exactly 6 letters. And this is further manifest in the account of creation, which takes place in 6 days. So the idea of 6 represents all of creation. Further, we see in the first sentence of the Torah, the first verse, the letter Aleph appears exactly 6 times. From this, our sages in the Talmud said that this era of history, this cycle of history, would last for 6,000 years, because if you remember in the letter Aleph, Aleph also means Aleph. So 6 Alephs in the first verse of the Torah hints to 6,000 years of history in this cycle of history. And we also see the number 6, as we said, 6 days of creation, followed by the Shabbat, forms the basic code and cycle of all process, of all cycles. 6 days we work, and on the 7th we rest. 6 years we work our fields, and on the 7th we rest. 6,000 years mankind works, and it will be followed by the 7,000th year, the Messianic era. Another manifestation of the letter Vav, connected to the idea of connection, is that the letter Vav has a unique role in the Torah. It only appears in biblical Hebrew, that when you put a Vav before a verb, it has the power to reverse the tenses. In other words, if you put a Vav before a verb in the past, you read it as the future, or the opposite. If the verb is in the future and there's a Vav in front of it, you read it as happening in the past. Now this is an awesome idea of the Vav being the connection between past and future. That function of the Vav to reverse past to future and future to past is called in Hebrew Vav HaHipuch, the Vav that reverses time. Einstein revealed what's called the relativity of time. That until Einstein, everyone thought that time moved unaffected by anything in the world, at its own pace. Einstein revealed that it's not true, that time is affected by gravity and velocity, and that times are different in different places depending on those 2 factors. So it's very interesting that in the word for light, the middle letter is a Vav. And because Einstein further taught that the mystery of light is very connected to the relativity of time. The letter Vav equals 6. We already mentioned how in the first verse of the Torah, this sets the scene for the cycles of all of history. On the level of the soul and divinity, the 10 Commandments were given in 2 luchot, 2 tablets. And we're taught that they were a cube of 6 tefachim, 6 hand breadths. All of space is actually a cube, can be envisioned as a cube, because all of space has the 4 directions and above and below. And so the manifestation of the VAV in the first verse of the Torah and its understanding of it being 6 and its connection to the 6 planes of space and the relativity of time tells us how important this letter is. Because of this, in God's 4-letter name, the VAV appears between the 2 heys, connecting what's called the upper hay and the lower hay. A beautiful meditation on the letter VAV would to be look deep inside of ourselves and all around us to see all of the connections in our lives, how all things are ultimately connected. This is the function of the letter VAV.